Welcome to the Pot of Gold podcast, where we talk about finances, wealth generation, and real estate investing. Today on the show, we have Jay Holder, who is the co-owner of Finish Line TC Services, which means he's a transactional coordinator. Now, Jay's also been in the C-suite side of business for about 10 years now, while simultaneously working his W-2 job as what'd you call it? Basically a person that does cybersecurity, right?
Yeah, I'm a chief information security officer.
Okay, so. Yeah, Chief Information Security Officer. Fancy title that's hard to remember.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today, Jay.
Oh, Nathan, thanks for having me, man. We've talked a lot, and I'm glad I got a chance to come on the show and talk to your subscribers.
Oh, yeah, definitely a pleasure to have you on here. I'm excited to see what you can tell us and how we can provide some value for the audience. Why don't you just kind of give us an idea of how you got started along this journey, why you chose transactional coordination, and where that's led?
Oh, absolutely. So back in 2022, I started watching some Grant Cardone videos, right? And went down that YouTube rabbit hole and wound up finding Pace. Going through some of his videos on Gator lending, I was like, that's the way I want to go. I want to start my own business, my own investing, and getting into the Gator community seemed like the great idea. So in February 23, when he opened the Gator community back up, I was like on the Zoom that said go live. As soon as the button went live, I bought it. Started just inhaling the training. And then I think I was a weekend and I was on one of the newbie calls with Pace and all them. And people were asking questions about contracts. Now, in my W-2 job, I do multi-million-dollar contracts, signing for different things for my organization. So I understand contracts, I understand risk. And so I was answering questions and he said, hey, that guy in the chat, Jay, is answering all the questions about the contracts. You should reach out to him. And so that's how I became a TC. Didn't know what a TC was, didn't know how to operate as a TC, just knew that I understood contracts and I knew how to help people. And then my willing and learning for risk, I started going down that rabbit hole of learning about the different types of risk with lending and how to secure people. And then fast forward 2 months later, I joined Sub2 and I met my business partner now, Jennifer Cortez. And she was a Sub2 TC and had been, but she didn't do the transaction side. And I was the transaction side. So I actually just reached out to her, just slid in her DMs, right? And said, hey, I'd like to try to do some work together. Ended up doing a transaction for her that she was borrowing money on a deal she was buying. So I did all this stuff for her and we just started like collaborating, working together for probably 2 months. And then it was like the same day at the exact same time we were on a call. It was like 9 o'clock at night. And we were on a call and we both went, why don't we just partner up? And so we did. We formed our company. And that's how we got to Finish.
That's how you got to Finish Line TC Services.
Yes, sir.
So just to kind of clarify for people who are listening, transaction coordinator is going to be the person that handles contracts and paperwork when it comes to a transaction for real estate, right?
Yeah, so a lot of that, yes, we do handle all that. Now we're not supposed to draft contracts, obviously, unless we're part of the deal and things like that. But what I like to tell people is you'll hear folks talk about we're the glue or we're the hub, like a hub and spoke on a tire. But what I like to tell people, for everybody that listens, is we're more like an airbag because you're an investor. Investors are going to get excited. You're going to be happy about your deal. And we're that airbag in the car that goes, whoa, don't slam your face on the glass. Here's red flags. Oh, stop. Don't do that yet. Here's red flags. And so that's the way we treated it. Our thing is more about making sure we're giving clear communication, showing the red flags, showing the problems, while tracking the paperwork and all that, right? Because we have to track the paperwork. But we try to provide more service than just doing paperwork because, we're not cheap. We're not the most expensive, but we're not cheap, right? And so we want to provide value for the price that you're spending. And so the good thing about our team is I've got a staff of 14 and we're hiring 5 more right now, I think. And so we're investors. All of us are investors. And so when we look at a deal, we don't look at it just from a transaction coordination perspective. We look at it from an investment deal and we give you an opinion. Now, again, we're not real estate agents or attorneys or CPAs or anything like that, but we are investors. And so when I look at a deal, I go, would I invest in it? And I'll tell people why I would invest it, why I wouldn't. And we have a risk rating. And depending on where it hits on the risk rating, we do turn clients away. We'll tell them, hey, this is too risky. And I'll refer them to somebody that I trust in the community, in the TC community that might do the deal for them. But yeah, we don't. We do have a risk. We try to run with integrity and follow our core values.
Well, that's really cool because one of the things that I've found as a new investor is there are a lot of things that I just don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. And having someone to help you with your transactions can catch things that you're unaware of is extremely valuable. In my opinion, worth every dollar. I did my first deal back in May, and I used a TC, and they were able to help me with exactly those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. Like I said, you know, you've got good ones, you've got bad ones, you've got everything in between, like any profession. So, a lot of things I tell people is don't shop for TCs on price, don't shop on other people's opinion. Actually, do your research. Multiple people will tell you, and you'll see it on podcasts I've been on, where I'll say, don't necessarily use me, but use somebody. Like use somebody who you trust, can do the deal, and go that route. It was funny. I was on a podcast and I talked about vetting your TC, and somebody I was doing a deal with literally goes, "Well, wait a minute, I didn't vet you, so how do I vet you?" And I was like, "There's no way to say it without sounding bad, right?" But I was like, "Go in the Facebook group and put my name in it, and you'll see all my public service announcements. You'll see everybody that I've worked with, people who post, and that's kind of what you have to do is you have to research their reputation on why people are recommending certain people, because it could be on price and they may think they got a good deal, they may think that they did things right and they didn't, because we see that a lot. And we help people who come to us and go, "Hey, I closed this deal 3 months ago, but I didn't change the insurance because my TC told me not to." And I was like, "Wow, good thing the house didn't burn down because your insurance is voided now.
Yeah.
You need to do the insurance. Let us help you do that." And things like that. And so again, it's not a knock on any other TC. It's just things that people haven't learned yet. And this was more back before Top Tier, because, you know, we've been doing this before Top Tier. So glad Top Tier came around. I'm glad Molly and Ashley created Top Tier and put it out there for training me, because I hop in all those Zooms. And so
Is that Molly Tennant and who?
Molly Tennant, you know, she created it, and then Ashley Mason's her operator, and
Okay.
she did a lot of the training too. And Ashley used to own her own TC company. Both great people. Love working with them. And so, like I said, they do Zooms. We have community Zooms, just like Sub2, just like Gator. But it seems like we have something every day, and it's multiple things. And then I'm one of the hosts on one of the Zooms. We do it every 2 weeks. Just trying to help new people, and old sounds bad. I'm gonna get slapped because there's a lot of women in the TC. OGTCs, I think is what we say. OGTCs, with how we can continue to learn and train and grow. And then that
use the word vintage.
yeah. You're trying to get me beat up, sir. But no, it's good. I mean, being a TC is it's fun. It's aggravating. It's all of the above.
Well, that's just kind of life, isn't it? I mean, everything that you do in life is going to have those aspects to it.
Yeah.
But cool. I really like that. And definitely, if people are interested in learning about that, Molly Tennant and her operator, Ashley Mason, you said her last name was?
Yeah, Mason.
Ashley Mason. Definitely a good resource for learning about how to handle all the paperwork and the transaction coordination side of things.
Absolutely.
And then I'm kind of curious. Did you run into any serious problems as you were trying to get your business off the ground that kind of were stumbling blocks that you had to really work on?
Yeah. So I told you, you know, we both had our own little thing that we did, and then we came together, and we were so used to just working transactions that we had no systems in place. We had no processes. We just went boom, 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 boom. And then we scaled really fast. So like we went from just me and Jennifer to like 12 people pulling in multiple files, and realized, like, wait a minute, we have to have systems in place. And so this is something I tell everybody who's new. Like, I'm not saying you got to have applications or buy software, any of that stuff, but a system, a repeatable process that you can do for every file. Now, granted, it's only going to hit 80% of the files because you're going to have those wild cards. But if you can get 80% of the file done the same way, in the same order every time, that 20%, you just deal with it, right? And there's no way to game plan it. You write it down, you make a process. If it pops back up, you might have one thing that never pops up again, but you got a process for it. And then you move into developing software. So like we use Monday.com.
Okay.
I do all of our programming for our Monday.com system. It's very intricate, and I'm actually in the process of rebuilding it into a different way that I want it, because, you know, you're a builder, right? You said you were a builder. Versions are great, but then you want a new version. You're like, oh, I can do so much better. But then by the time you start messing with it, you've rebuilt it. So that's what I'm doing now. And then we use Go High Level for all of our
Okay.
like web painting, and we actually use Open Dispo version of Go High Level, but for all of our website design and all that, and actually get into the system. And so I say, and I've told a bunch of people that, like, make sure you have that system. That was our biggest problem. That was honestly our biggest problem when we started. Now we've got technology, we've got systems, we've got processes, we've got everything in place we need to continue doing files. I mean, we do between 40 to 55 files a month, which is a
Okay.
lot.
Yeah, that
It's a
was
lot of
about, was going to be my next question is what kind of deal flow are you looking at? 40 to 50
yeah.
files a month, huh? And that's
Yeah,
about,
right now a little slow, but yeah.
and you said that's about 16 people or so, and you're hiring more? That's you
We
two
have
plus 14?
we have 12 right now, and then we're hiring 4 to 5 more people.
Gotcha.
We're a little bit different because we try to structure into groups of the types of deals you can handle. Like I think we're the only ones that have a full post-closing team. That's all they do. So all their job is once the file for like a sub 2 or seller finance gets closed, we pass the file to them and they go in and set up your mortgage, change out your mortgage portal, do your insurance portal, make sure it all gets added, cut on your utilities, HOA, do all the transfers for you. And those can take, they can take 30 to 50 days, 30 to 60 days for all that stuff to get done. And so instead of, having TCs bouncing back and forth with our deal flow, it was better for us to build a team out, and that's all they do.
Okay.
So they do them we recommend it for our clients. And then we have people who come in, or we see people say, hey, I don't know how to do the insurance. Like, hey, we can help you, walk you through how to obtain new insurance, the way to help structure it, and then how to get it over into the mortgage company so that you're insured. And I use
Okay.
that as one.
So you're taking care of a lot of the transfer of ownership or entity transfer for these different services like mortgage servicing and insurance and such for sub 2 and seller finance transactions. Do you also do like normal traditional transactions or other types of transactions, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so we do. So we do normal transactions, or traditional transactions. We really focus. We have 2 or 3 brokerages we focus on, and they're in a certain state because that's where one of our partners are, that has a real estate license, and so they're able to understand everything that needs to be done. We take them on traditional files in other states for sure, and we walk through those deals. There's a learning curve there because it's actually more regulated, so we have to make sure we're not doing things we're not supposed to do. Because I'm going to tell you, as a transaction coordinator, even today, that I don't do something I'm probably not supposed to do, right? But I'm protected under my insurance and all that. But when you go into things that are actually governed by like NAR, the North American Real Estate Agency or group, whatever they're called, that's actually governing real estate agents, you have to make sure that you're following some of their rules. And
Gotcha.
so you go through that. But yeah, we'll do traditional. We do vehicles, we do business purchases. I've done so many different types of deals. Like me personally, I don't focus on the normal deals anymore. I do the harder deals, like the Morby methods. Like I just closed a 20 unit portfolio. It was 20 individual houses. 8 of them were single family seller finance, and the other 12 were Morby methods. And it was a big portfolio and it was fun, but that's what I focus on mainly. And then vehicles, I've been doing a lot of vehicles for people, trying to help them out. And then we've got people who focus on gator lending and PML, which is a big thing of mine. I kind of run that department, but we have somebody under me that's better suited to handle the day-to-day than I am with that.
Okay.
And then we get into land trust a lot too. So
Interesting. So for people who are listening, a PML is a private money loan or a private money lender. And then would you be able to explain what the Morby method is a little bit for us?
Ooh, that one's a little tricky. So the way it works is when you're high level, and we'll just talk about one way. Let's say you're purchasing a house from somebody that's worth 100 grand, and they're willing to take 40 grand for the house. So you can get the contract, and you can get it under contract for $100,000. You can go to a lender. The lender will give you 70%. You bring in a transactional funder to close the deal. You get the full 100 grand at closing, then you pay out your transactional lender gets their money back plus a fee. Your seller gets their 40K, and then you take the rest with you, and you use that money to do rehab and things like that. And essentially, you've bought $100,000 house for $70,000, nothing out of pocket, and you owe 70 grand on it. So you have a built-in $30,000 equity as well because you have no money into it. So, because normally the way you would do equity would be is like if I got $50,000 into a $100,000 house, then I only have 50 grand with their equity. Well, if I have zero in, I have all the equities mine. And so that's like the high level of how the easiest Morby method to do is. And those are my favorite ones. So when people are like, I can do this, I'm like, yeah, let's do that. Then you've got ones where you have a seller carry portion. So you've got to pay the seller plus the hard money lender. Then you've got Morby methods where you have to go in and get like an HML hard money lender to pay for the rehab and the purchase, do the same thing. And then at the end of the day, refinance out, in the next 12 months, which is a little harder to do sometimes. So it just depends on the deal. But yeah, there's like 6 or 7 different types of the Morby, but it's a way to get into deals for nothing out of pocket and put some money in your pocket. I'm very tight on the ones I do with those dudes. Same thing. Like my iPad over is full of whiteboard sessions with people where I go through and go, and it says at the top, not a deal. We won't take it. Because I watch investors. Here's what I'm saying. If you ever look at doing the Morby method, be a conscious investor, be an honorable investor. I've seen some where they're like, I'm going to get 600 grand out of this house. I'm like, yes, but that house isn't going to appreciate to the point in 5 years that you needed to refinance your person out. And then the rents don't make enough to cover all these fees. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do? And they're like, well, we'll figure that out later. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're going to figure that out later. We're going to not do this deal because you put your seller, especially when you do one where you owe the seller money, you put your seller at a really disadvantage because you owe them money so they can get their full amount. And then you owe the hard money lender or the DSCR lender. And if you don't pay them and they foreclose, the only way to stop it is if the actual owner gets the property back, and then now they got to pay that mortgage. And it's yes, you got to be careful.
So it sounds like it's more of a high level kind of a skill. It's going to require some really good underwriting skills to be able to make sure that it works.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It's one of those things. And I'm not an underwriter by any means. I underwrite my own deals that I buy because I also do buy and hold. But for those, like I do some decent underwriting just to determine, is it a deal? Now, one of the things I'll tell you is I'm not looking at the deal from a perspective of I verified they're going to get that much in rent, things like that. Like I take it, they're the investor, they're the one buying it. I take it that they've done that and they're telling me how much they're going to get. And then especially if I spit out the numbers and those numbers don't line up to pay, doesn't really matter if they were right or wrong on the rents. Mm-hmm. If it's close, I'll be like, can you show me where you got these rents? And another thing I look at too, and this is another thing when you're doing any kind of deal, I ask them what their portfolio looks like, because just because a house may negatively cash flow, if there's somebody who has a portfolio of say 1,000 doors, like one door negatively cash flowing, but in doing an ingestion of profit into their pocket up front may be worth it for them. Like, if I could get a house that gave me a 50K injection of money that I could put into another investment, but I'm going to lose $200 a month on it. But overall, my portfolio, let's say I make 15 grand a month, $200 isn't nothing to get that cash injection to move into another property. And that new property I might be moving into to buy will cover the $200. So yeah, there's a lot more than just underwriting the deal. It's underwriting the person. Okay. Yeah. Person's important.
No, I think you did a really good job explaining that. Appreciate that. Well, that's really cool. And there's been some kind of interesting things that have been part of your journey. What exactly is your plan for the future? What's next for Jay?
Yeah. So I'm part of a group that 3 of us that just bought a software as a service company. It does can't name the name of the company yet, but it does digital marketing, done for you marketing, PPC, so pay-per-click, lead generation. It does all this for you. All you have to do is take what it gives you and put it out there. And actually, we're working on some cool integrations to where we'll even do that for you. But that's my goal, is to get that up and running fully, get it get it profitable. It has an exit, and then I'm into moving into other businesses, buying other businesses. Um, I, I currently do operations for a few people, and I'll continue to do operations for people that come in. I like to run the operation side of investors that are doing money lending because it's easier to secure them. Not easier, but it's something that I'm really known for. I'm really good at is securing people's money and making sure they get their money back. And so I'm just really passionate about helping them. And then like we were talking, I think before, like my ultimate goal is to be able to provide for people in my community in general and working with like sober living and affordable living and trying to help the homeless population we have here where I live and then spread out because that's what we're told to do, So I try to do everything I'm told to do.
Well, that's definitely respectable. And I think it's kind of on us to be able to help figure that kind of a thing out because, well, I am of the opinion that to whom much is given, much is required. And so it's good to give back. And if you're not sending the elevator back down after you're successful, then you're kind of a dummy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like you've got to be able to put aside your needs or not even needs wants and help other people with their needs like you're told to do. And especially if God's giving you an abundance, like you should be giving it back. And trying to help out as much as you can.
Definitely. Wow, that's really good. You mentioned that you help secure private money lenders so that they can make sure that they get their money back. What exactly does that look like?
Yeah. So obviously I can't sit up here and say, oh, I'm going to make sure you get your money back. Right. But what I help do is like I vet to make sure that I'll look at their deal and I'll say, okay, this is great. You're going to give somebody 30 grand and you're going to get back 100, whatever. Right. Cause that's what we seem to do. But it's what is the loan to value currently? So I'll look at it and say, well, let's pull title. Let's find out how much is actually owed. So let's say, let's use $100,000 house again. Let's say they only owe 20 grand on it and they want to borrow 20 grand from you to do some rehab and they're going to sell it for 110. Well, there's enough cushion there that if they did nothing, you could take the house over and sell it and get your money back plus some. Or let's look at that same $100,000 house that's already leveraged at $80,000 and they want to borrow 20 from you. Well, now we're 100% loan to value. If you take that house, you're not getting any money. You're going to lose money. And so it's looking at the deal from that perspective and then making sure that you understand like all of the right paperwork you need to have to be able to do anything. And then I give recommendations on like cross collateral, additional items that lawyers, we have a law group that we work with that writes all our stuff for us that I'll be like, hey, I can have my lawyer do this, this, and this. And this is why it's important to secure you or to help you if the house was to have a problem or if the person ghosted you. And so we'll add that. And we don't do false sense of security. There's a lot out there that'll just do whatever the investor asks. Right. And I get asked all the time, well, I want a deed in lieu. No, you don't, because it's a piece of paper. Pre-signed deed in lieu don't work. Most states don't even recognize them. You can get somebody to write them for you though. Don't get me wrong. I can get them for you, but they don't do anything. I'm trying to explain to people, if they did anything, why does Bank of America not have a deed in lieu on every mortgage they have? Why do they spend money foreclosing? That's why they give you 4 months before they ever try to do a foreclosure, because it costs them money to do a foreclosure.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And so and then the other one was like performance deeds. And I went over this with somebody the other day, and then Pace has a video about don't use performance deeds or don't talk about performance deeds anymore, right? Old school. They watched the video 3 years ago versus today. They don't understand everything keeps evolving. Everything keeps changing. And then I look at ways that we can, protect the PML, because I'm also a PML. So in fact, I'm in like 3 deals right now that are all going good. Supposed to get my money back next month. Yeah. And so it's what other paperwork can we put in place? What else can we do? And honestly, just ask like things that you're not going to know, that you don't think about, that I'll go, hey, can I ask the investor this? And you say, wow, yes. Now to ask that next time up front before you ever call me. But at the same time, I'm going to go ask the investor, and I get some that get mad, and I get some that go, wow, we've never even thought about doing that. And I'm like, well, let's do it. Right. Like, If you're going to invest on an 80% loan to value, that's awesome. What other property do you have to collateralize that's not your personal property? What do you have, right? And then usury laws, like
Mm-hmm.
some of these deals I've seen people do, and it's like, I'm getting paid back 80%. And I'm like, you're going to jail if anybody files it. Like, not jail, but Florida, if you're over 24% annual, it's a class 3 felony or misdemeanor, one of the two.
Oh,
So it
wow.
is a legit charge. And they're different. Like in some states, you could do like admin fees and origination fees, and those don't count against usury. Florida, you sneeze on a paper towel, it counts as usury. So you want to have somebody who's actually paying attention to that and knowledgeable. And again, not me, like our team. It's not just me, like our whole team. We learn this stuff. If I find something, my team hears it. If my other partners find it, our team hears it. Everybody's getting this information. We have a rolling Google chat, and we have our rolling Google chat had so much stuff in it. We had to make separate chats, one for like education, one for this, one for that, so that we could keep it all organized and actually remember what was said. And then we're always looking at, like, we've got realtors on our team, we've got lawyers, and so we're always looking at the new laws and new rules and making sure that where they apply to us and where they don't.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the usury laws, because that's actually something that came up when I did my first private money loan. The person that wanted to borrow from me wanted to use his personal residence as cross collateral, and the real estate attorney that we talked to for drafting the document says, no, that's not going to fly. And so we actually had to change the whole structure of the deal, but it allowed us to find a more creative solution. Lessons you learn because like I mentioned at the start of the episode, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And it's a really useful to have someone like you and your team to be able to point out those things that you might not even be aware of.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, like, I might not be right either. Like, this is the thing. Like, I'll tell you something that I believe, that I think how it should work. And I could be wrong. Like let's talk usury, right? Like, I got on a call with a lawyer in Tennessee, and I live here. And I was like, he was explaining usury. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Cause this, and we were going back and forth. And finally he goes, but listen, I'm just one lawyer. And I said, that's true. And I said, so if I listen to you and I do what you say, and we have to go to court, right? Somebody has to go to court. It's really up to the judge, who's another lawyer, and how he interprets this rule. And he goes, yeah, exactly. He goes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, depending on, it doesn't matter that they're a real estate lawyer. If they don't interpret the rule correctly, you can still break rules. And so, yeah, so I tell people, while I will tell you what I think, I always preface every call with, like, not a lawyer, not a CPA, not a real estate agent, like an investor, a guy who's trying to help. This is how I would invest my money. This is what I would do. Those types of things. And so it's really, man, it's scary from a perspective of investing and not 100% understanding the rules. And the reason is the game's rigged, right? It's made to where you're not going to understand the rules. Because nobody does. Not even the people who are defending the rules understand. So, I mean, you see that in politics, right? But like, even this, like, not everybody understands the rules. And so it's like, okay, I mean, I've been on calls with lawyers where they tell me something's wrong, and I've broke it down why I think they're wrong, and I go all the way through it, and they're like, you know what, you're right. I go, great. So you believe what I'm telling you is correct? They're like, yeah. They're like, cool. So can we do this transaction? Go, I just don't feel comfortable. I'm like, I'm good with that. You don't feel comfortable doing it, even though you say I'm right legally, and you don't feel comfortable? I can respect that. Like, I don't want to put your I don't want to put your certificate and your license up on the block because I want to help my investor get a deal done. So we just move on to the next one and work through it.
No, that's a good thing to do, because there's always going to be more deals to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool. Before we finish up the episode, I'm just kind of get an idea of how people can contact you, where they can reach out to you to maybe work with you.
Oh yeah. The best place right now that I tell people is on Instagram. It's at the J Holder on Instagram. It's got my link tree. So it's got my calendar, it's got email, it's got my website, it's got all my other socials. So if you just go there, you can contact me and work with me. One of the big things right now is we're about to run a Black Friday special, and depending on when this airs, right? But if you contact me from this and you put Pot of Gold in there and tell me that's where you heard me from on Nathan's podcast, we'll give you a nice discount and love to work with you on your files and move those forward, especially if you come out of Nathan's video Be great.
Awesome. Well, just make sure that when you're reaching out to him on Instagram, you can do that through the direct message. It's at the J Holder, and use pot of gold as the keyword so that he knows where you came from. And awesome. I really appreciated having you on the show today, Jay. Is there anything else you'd like to let the audience know before we get off the episode today? Maybe resources or things people that are just getting started might be able to take advantage of to learn?
Absolutely. So hop in the free Facebook groups. Creative Finance is the group. If you're not in any of like the Sub 2 or the Gators, hop in there and read. Just read through comments, read through posts. Don't read the ones where people are trying to sell things, right? Because that's gonna happen. Property's getting sold in there, and that's awesome. Do a lot of deals out there, but read like people who are making public service announcements. Search these keywords. Anytime I make a post where I'm trying to tell somebody something, I always start with PSA. That way, people will actually pay attention. And then number two, everything's an alleged or a fictional idea, and it's never an alleged or fictional idea. But I'm not going to call people out like that unless it's truly, truly bad. But scenarios, like I put a lot of scenarios out there, and a lot of people do, a lot of TCs do, especially because we see so many different scenarios that you as an investor are never going to see. And then network. Like I know it sounds cliche and everybody says it, right? But network, intentional networking. Don't just call people to call people. Like have a reason, have a method. Either you've got something they need or you want to offer them something, right? Like you've got it. Like if you were going to call a TC, you either have a deal that you want them to work or you want to learn something from them so you have something to bring them. So go at it that way. Don't be, I think Pace used to call it an ask hole, right? ASK hole. Don't be that. You want to give and taker, more giving than taking, because if everybody's giving, you don't have to take anything. Like it's all there. It's all out there. And then the other big thing is collaboration. Like if you're an old head in the community or you're anything like that, I'm a firm believer in collaboration over competition. We're all going to get deals. There's no reason to backstab, cutthroats, do any of that stuff. Just be yourself, help people, live like God told you to live, and do what you're supposed to do. And everything takes care of itself. It really does. So those are the big things.
I like to say there's no I in real estate. It's a team sport.
It really is. Like, it's really sad. Yeah. It's really sad to watch people backstab each other or steal deals and do just underhanded stuff. And you're like, you realize we're all in the same group. Like we're all the same people. So I'm going to
watch what you're doing.
Yeah. So.
Well, cool. I definitely appreciate your time today, Jay. And I'm glad to be able to learn more about what you're doing with your business. I'm excited to see what you do with the software as a service company that you've just picked up. And it's going to be exciting.
I appreciate it. Thank you again. Thank you for having me on, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. And this has been the Pot of Gold podcast, where we talk about finances, wealth generation, and real estate investing. Thank you so much for tuning in.